Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. We're so glad you could join us for EEO, the dentist's coffee time.
Hello. Yes, today we're taking a bit of a detour, stepping back from the usual, the materials, the occlusion techniques.
Right, we're going deep into something maybe more fundamental, actually.
Definitely. We're asking what really is beauty?
Mm.
And maybe even trickier, what makes something truly art with a capital A?
It sounds a bit philosophical, maybe,
Yeah.
but honestly, our goal today is super practical, especially for you listening. We're going to trace how these ideas, art and beauty, have, well, evolved over time, from like ancient statues for gods
All the way through modern thinking.
to land right back in your world. We want to show why creating a truly beautiful dental restoration isn't just skilled work.
It's more than craft.
Exactly. It's actually, by a pretty solid definition, a real act of art. We're aiming to show that a perfect restoration, well, it's not just technically sound, it's achieving something maybe spiritual.
Okay, so to kick things off, we have to tackle this common mix-up.
Art and beauty.
Yeah. People use them almost interchangeably sometimes. But the source material we looked at, it challenges that right away.
Yeah.
It asks, point blank, is art always beautiful?
And the answer is...
A clear no. Definitely not.
Yep.
Think about some modern art, right? Shocking, disturbing even.
Sure. Okay, flip side then. Is everything beautiful automatically art?
Again, no. A sunset can be incredibly beautiful, but we wouldn't typically call it a work of art in the same sense as a painting.
So that relationship between them, it's fluid, is that the right word?
I think fluid is perfect. They're not synonyms at all.
Okay.
Over the centuries, they've sometimes been really closely linked, almost fused.
Working together.
Right. And other times, artists have actively tried to break them apart, aiming for something, sublime or conceptual or even ugly, specifically to avoid just being labeled beautiful.
Wow. So the connection keeps changing.
Constantly. It gets renegotiated based on what a culture needs, what society values at that moment, and frankly, who's in charge of deciding what looks right.
Okay, let's trace that back then.
Right.
Where did they first really strongly come together? You mentioned ancient times.
Let's start with classical Greece. Think about their sculptures, their temples. Why do we still see them as pinnacles of beauty?
Proportion, harmony.
Yes, but why those things? It wasn't just aesthetics for aesthetics' sake. They were beautiful because they expressed a higher power.
Theocracy, divine rule.
Exactly. Beauty was basically a requirement. It was how you showed respect for the gods, how you reflected the divine order. That symmetry, the idealized human form, it wasn't just an artistic choice.
It was ideological.
It absolutely was. It was about conveying power, stability, the perfection of the gods.
And you're saying this wasn't just a Western thing?
Not at all. Our sources highlight a really interesting parallel in ancient China. Think Tang Dynasty, 6 dynasties, period.
Okay.
The incredible Buddhist figures they created, the Foshan.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't just statues. They were stunningly beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're beautiful for basically the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
To serve a spiritual and authoritative purpose. To inspire awe and reverence.
So in that early phase, beauty wasn't really the end goal itself.
Not primarily, no. It was more like a tool, a servant, you could say.
A servant to the divine.
Precisely. Its job was to make the religious or spiritual message more powerful, more compelling, to ensure the object commanded respect. The skill, the artistry, it was all in service of worship. If a statue of Apollo didn't look perfect, how could it properly represent a god?
That makes sense. The sources gave a great comparison here, didn't they, between Venus and Guanyin?
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant example. Venus, the Greek goddess, she is beauty, right? Her whole identity is wrapped up in physical perfection.
Okay.
But Guanyin Bodhisattva, traditionally, embodies compassion, mercy.
So the beauty serves a different ideal there.
Exactly. And think about how we usually picture Guanyin now, that gentle, often feminine, sort of maternal figure.
Right, very approachable.
That aesthetic is arguably designed to resonate with people's longing for a compassionate, nurturing presence. The beauty serves the feeling of mercy.
But wait, this is where that surprising historical detail came in. That wasn't always the image, was it? The source mentioned earlier depictions.
Were sometimes male, even shown with a beard.
Wow. So the look completely changed.
It's a fantastic illustration of what you might call aesthetic engineering, shifting from potentially quite a stern, bearded male figure to the universally recognized softer image that wasn't random.
It was a choice.
A deliberate, strategic choice. The look was modified to better serve the intended emotional connection. How do you make compassion visually appealing and relatable to the widest audience?
Yeah.
Make Guanyin look Gentle, kind, beautiful in that specific way.
So the aesthetics were adjusted, sometimes drastically, to fit the doctrine or the desired public response.
Absolutely. Beauty was molded to fit the purpose.
Yeah.
Okay, so that focus on, let's say, idealized physical perfection, it starts to fade a bit as we move into the European Middle Ages, often called the Dark Ages, so that's a bit misleading.
Right. So why the shift away from that classical ideal of beauty?
Well, the whole philosophical underpinning changed pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
In the early medieval period, the big focus wasn't on the outer body, which could be seen as, sinful or temporary.
Oh,
The real value was placed on the inner spirit, the soul, the seriousness of faith. So art became less about celebrating the perfect form.
and more about the struggle, the spirit.
Exactly, reflecting the struggle of the soul, the gravity of religious belief, which led to, well, different kinds of images.
More focused on suffering, pain, austerity. I'm thinking of depictions of Christ on the cross.
Right. They're often incredibly raw, very focused on the physical reality of the crucifixion, not necessarily heroic in the classical sense.
Very visceral.
Yeah, you see that stark, sometimes painful realism in a lot of Byzantine and early medieval art. But then, as we move towards the Renaissance, say from the 12th century onwards, something starts to shift again.
The softening.
A slow but definite aesthetic softening, yes. The way Christ is depicted starts to move away from that really harsh, hardcore suffering image.
Towards something a bit more compassionate, less overwhelming.
That's a good way to put it. Maybe slightly more relatable, less terrifying for the average viewer.
So even within that religious framework, beauty starts to creep back in, maybe? The message is still divine, but the delivery changes slightly.
It suggests, perhaps, a growing humanism, even within the church's influence. It shows that aesthetic purpose is never totally fixed.
It reflects what people or the authorities want or need to see and feel at that time.
Beauty as a barometer. That's a good way to think about it. A barometer of cultural and spiritual needs.
Okay, so that brings us to the really big break, the Renaissance. This is where things get super interesting for understanding where we are today, aesthetically speaking.
Absolutely. Roughly 13th to 16th centuries, you have the great masters emerging. They're looking back, aren't they?
To Greece and Rome.
Right. Rediscovering those classical ideals. And in doing that, they start to appreciate beauty for its own sake again, beginning that formal separation from strict religious control.
The secular turn.
A huge moment. Art and beauty start migrating away from theology and towards humanism, towards celebrating human life, human achievement.
So by the 17th, 18th centuries,
Beauty has pretty much completed its transition. It's moved from serving God and the church to serving, well, the secular world.
serving the market, patrons, the nobility, ordinary people.
All of the above. It's now primarily for secular enjoyment, decoration, status.
And the big consequence of that, according to the sources.
Was that the sort of sacred nobility, that automatic elevation it got just from being associated with the divine, was lost?
Okay. So beauty wasn't inherently important anymore just because it was beautiful. It was now mainly about pleasing the eye, subjective taste.
Right. And this triggered a really fascinating backlash, a kind of internal conflict within the art world that honestly still echoes today.
How so?
Well, once beauty became easier to achieve, more widespread, maybe focused purely on that surface-level sensory pleasure, just looking nice.
People started to find it shallow.
Exactly. Critics, and even artists themselves, started to feel it was becoming too superficial, too easy, lacking depth.
Like the pendulum swung too far. If it's just pretty without that deeper philosophical weight, maybe it felt less significant.
Precisely. That feeling that pure visual pleasure wasn't quite enough for the human spirit led to reactions. You see artists starting to deliberately search for meaning again.
No.
Through intellectual complexity, intense emotion, spiritual searching. Think about mannerism, early romanticism, anything to inject concept and weight back into the work beyond just looking harmonious.
So it's this constant cycle, separation, recombination.
Art is always chasing purpose, meaning. It swings between focusing on pure form and focusing on deep concept or feeling. It never quite settles.
Okay, this leads us right into how things started getting categorized, especially in the West. As art went secular, people needed a way to rank it, right? To create a new hierarchy.
Yes, and the Western tradition tended to be quite rigid, confining the idea of high beauty mostly to the visual arts.
Which gave us the category of fine art.
Exactly. Fine art. Traditionally, that meant painting, drawing, sculpture. Things perceived as primarily intellectual, conceptual.
Relying on the mind, not just the hand.
That was the implication. And even the materials reinforced it. The source notes how things like brushes, canvas, pigments were labeled fine art supplies.
It sounds incredibly narrow, almost elitist. It excluded so much.
It did. It explicitly left out things involving heavy manual labor or things that were functional or even things involving sound or hearing initially.
And this is the crucial bit for us, for our listeners. Where did that leave skilled crafts? Things like pottery, weaving, or early dental work.
They often got pushed into secondary categories, secondary arts, applied arts, crafts.
So they acknowledged the skill involved.
Oh, absolutely. The skill was undeniable. But they separated it from the supposed intellectual nobility of fine art. The work of the hand was seen as somehow less profound than the work of the mind.
Wow. So there was this built-in value judgment, mind over matter, almost. No matter how incredible the craftsmanship, if it was functional or involved intensive labor, it was ranked lower.
Right. And that historical bias, that separation, directly feeds into why professions like ours, highly skilled, technical, and aesthetic, sometimes still fight for that recognition as a true fine art. The skill was always there, but the perceived purpose and the labor involved historically put it in a different box.
Understanding that history is key then.
It's the baggage that modern art then deliberately tried to shred.
Okay, let's get into that. Late 19th, early 20th century, Impressionism, Cubism, Abstract Expressionism.
The game completely changes because the absolute must of visual accuracy just evaporates.
Right. The big shift was artists saying, I don't have to paint this exactly like it looks in the real world anymore. Think Picasso.
Exactly. The focus flips. It's no longer about capturing the external world accurately.
It's about the internal world.
Precisely. The goal becomes finding the inner image, the feeling, the psychological state, transmitting something the artist feels inside. The shapes, the colors, the forms, they become reflections of an emotional or conceptual reality, not just an optical one.
So this leads to a new way of thinking about what art even is. Our sources boiled it down to 3 essential components, right? They have to overlap, even if the balance varies.
Yes. 3 key things. First, skill. You still need mastery of your medium, whatever it is.
Okay, technical ability.
Second, concept. The underlying idea, the meaning, the message, the philosophy.
Well, why?
And third, feeling or experience. The emotional impact, what the artist intends for the audience to feel.
And different art forms might emphasize different parts.
Sure. Historically, applied arts really leaned heavily on skill. Abstract expressionism might minimize traditional visual skill but maximize concept and feeling. But all 3 need to be there, intersecting somehow.
Got it. Skill, concept, feeling.
And putting those together leads us straight to Leo Tolstoy, the Russian writer and philosopher. His definition is incredibly powerful here.
Okay, this sounds important, especially for connecting it back to dentistry.
It is. It fundamentally reframes the purpose of aesthetics and gives us the philosophical muscle to elevate what we do.
So what was Tolstoy's big insight? What's the real test for something to be art?
He said, art isn't just about being really good at making something. It's not just high-level craft.
Okay.
It's the kind of process where an artist uses some kind of external symbol, could be paint on canvas, sculpted marble, musical notes, words on a page.
Or a dental restoration.
Potentially, yes. Uses that external symbol to consciously transmit an experience, a feeling they have deeply felt themselves to other people.
So the object, the painting, the crown is just the medium, the vehicle?
Exactly. The transmission is everything.
And the key requirement.
The absolute key is that the recipient, the person looking, listening, experiencing, must actually be influenced by it. They must feel the same feeling the artist intended to convey.
Wow. Okay, let's make that concrete. An example outside our field.
Sure. Imagine a composer writes music trying to express, say, the specific heavy feeling of grief after a loss. According to Tolstoy, that music only succeeds as art if the listener genuinely feels that complex sadness wash over them.
It's not just understanding that the composer was sad.
No. It's sharing the actual feeling. It's the difference between reading a description of an exciting festival and actually feeling the buzz, the energy, the collective joy through a piece of art depicting it.
The artist is a transmitter of emotion.
A conscious transmitter. And if that transmission doesn't land, if the audience looks at the work and feels nothing, or feels something completely different from the artist's intent, well, it might be skillful, technically brilliant even.
But it fails Tolstoy's test for being art.
Exactly. That's the definition we need to bring into the clinic.
Okay, perfect. Let's do that. Let's unpack this definition and apply it directly. All this history, all this philosophy, how does it relate to the dentist crafting a smile?
It fits remarkably well, actually. If art needs that conscious transmission of feeling via an external symbol,
Where are those pieces in aesthetic dentistry?
Well, the external symbol is pretty obvious, isn't it? It's the restoration itself.
The crowns, the veneers, the bridge, the
A
inlay.
whole aesthetic composition. That's the tangible thing carrying the message.
Okay, symbol identified. Now, the artist's feeling, the dentist's intent.
That's crucial. It's infused into every choice. When you're selecting that shade, managing the incisal edge character, meticulously shaping the emergence profile, you're not just following technical steps.
You're making judgments based on feeling.
You're working with a conscious, felt intention. I feel this contour creates harmony. Or my intent here is to convey strength, vitality, youthfulness.
Ah, so it's that internal aesthetic sense guiding the physical work.
That's what lifts it beyond just mechanics. And then comes the transmission. The dentist, through the restoration, transmits their feeling of, let's say, aesthetic, rightness, harmony, health, naturalness to the viewer.
And the viewer isn't just the patient.
Critically, no. It's the patient first and foremost, of course, but it's also colleagues who see the work, the dental team, even the public the patient interacts with.
And the final piece, fulfilling Tolstoy's requirement.
The shared experience.
Mm.
The viewer needs to receive that intended feeling. When the patient looks in the mirror at the final case,
They don't just see teeth.
exactly, they think, wow, I see this beautiful work, and I feel beautiful, I feel confident, I feel like myself again. That shared feeling, I intended beauty, you perceive beauty, you feel beauty, that's the successful transmission.
The sources had some good clinical examples here too, like fixing alignment or bad margins.
Perfect examples. Think about seeing crooked teeth or those old, dark PFM margins.
Yeah, the black lines.
As a clinician, you immediately feel, what? Imperfection,
Yeah.
disharmony, visual noise.
Definitely. It feels wrong.
Right. So your intention in treatment isn't just to make it technically sound. It's specifically to eliminate that negative feeling of wrongness and replace it with a positive feeling of harmony, order, seamlessness.
The physical work serves that philosophical goal.
Absolutely. And think about texture and polish. How does that
Yeah.
communicate feeling? A restoration that's too flat, too shiny, too perfect.
Can feel fake, overdone.
Right. It transmits a feeling of artificiality, but a restoration that has subtle texture, that interacts with light naturally.
It feels organic, effortless.
It transmits an intended feeling of natural vitality. These are nuanced choices, like managing the buccal corridor. Too narrow.
Makes the smile look dark, aged, maybe constricted.
Transmits that negative feeling.
Yeah.
Be careful contouring there.
Transmits fullness, youth, confidence.
So by Tolstoy's definition, this whole process, applying skill consciously, driven by a concept like harmony or youth, specifically to create a shared sensory and emotional experience,
Means aesthetic dentistry done right.
is absolutely unequivocally an act of art. You're using the restoration as a symbol to communicate your internal vision of aesthetic harmony, and the patient's resulting feeling, their confidence, proves the transmission worked.
It's really reframing it. You're not just bonding ceramic, you're transmitting beauty. You're creating a shared experience of confidence and well-being.
That's the core of it.
Wow. Okay, so let's wrap this up. What a journey indeed.
It really was. We started way back, art and beauty serving gods and kings. We saw them break away, become secular, serve the human eye, maybe get a bit lost in just pleasure.
And then find a deeper purpose again.
And serving the human spirit through this idea of consciously transmitting a shared feeling.
And the takeaway for dentists listening
Is that your work, at its best, demands more than just incredible technical skill. That's the foundation, of course.
but it's not the whole picture.
No. It's the conscious weaving together of that skill with a clear concept, an idea of beauty, of health, of naturalness to create that shared experience. The feeling you intend, the feeling you bake into the contours, the shade, the texture, that's what elevates it from just craft to art.
Yeah, like aesthetic engineers of emotion.
That's not a bad way to put it. And when a patient sees the final result and is genuinely moved, maybe even to tears, not just because their teeth look nice, but because they feel whole, they feel confident, they feel restored.
That's the proof.
That's the ultimate proof of successful artistic transmission.
Okay. So, if we accept this definition that dental restorations become art through the shared experience they generate, it leaves us with a really interesting question to ponder. Something for you to think about next time you're planning a complex case. What is the most challenging emotion or feeling you consciously try to transmit when finishing an anterior aesthetic case? Is it enduring strength? Is it vibrant youth? Or is it perhaps just effortless, completely unnoticeable natural harmony? Thank you so much for joining us for Elma. Bye-bye. 1 second pause.